The Cold Omaha Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to Procedurally Generated. I'm Henry Bell, and joining me today are Tom Schreier and Brandon Bowling. Today we're going to be covering the new Overwatch champion, Orisa, an update to the Overwatch tie system, the shocking progress that fans have made emulating the new Zelda game, and a whole lot more. But first, I want to get things started with what we've been playing this week. Guys, there's been a bunch of games out already this year. I feel like we have just had tons to talk about every single week.
Yeah, dude, I've been staying up on average till like 2 a.m. just like playing games to get a good idea. Just swapping. It's crazy.
It's gotten to the point, is your sleep schedule officially flipped yet? Because with the last couple midnight releases, I come home and I'm like, is Brandon dead? Because his door's been shut for 12 and a half hours. You're sleeping till like 2 a.m. to play the midnight releases?
Yeah, like for Mass Effect, I got home, went to bed at 6:30, woke up at 10:30, lost my keys, found my keys at 10:50, and literally sat down as the preload finished for Mass Effect Andromeda. And I was like, yeah. And then I proceeded to play that game for like 5 hours the first night.
Nice.
It was pretty beast.
Well, before we get to that, I think there was another game you wanted to talk about here, so why don't you get us started?
All right, so the first thing I want to start talking about is Nier Automata, or Automata, depending on, I guess, where you are, how you want to pronounce it.
The emphasis on the syllable.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Automata. I'm kind of confused as to where. Automata? Automata? Automatopia? Yeah. Anyway, getting back to it. Nier Automata is a JRPG-ish game made by Platinum Games. It released about 2.5 weeks ago, released on the 17th for PC. I was super excited about it because the creative director of this game, goes by the name of Yoko Taro, actually had full creative control for scenario and story for this. So I was like, oh, I'm kind of excited. If you're not familiar with the name, or if you haven't watched internet videos of the man yet, he's famous for his Drakengard 3 game. He worked on that series for a while, and Nier, interestingly enough, Nier and its new game, Nier Automata, are actually part of the same series, branching off from one of their many endings. So just jumping in real quick, I'll give you a quick synopsis on the story. The story effectively is this is essentially like a couple thousand years after the events of one of the endings in Drakengard, and what happened is alien robots have come and effectively taken over the planet, pushing humans to live on the moon in exile. So the humans, of course, made a bunch of really sexy robots with high heels and like
because Japan.
Because Japan, and like really attractive boy people to help save the world by sending them down. Trying to be for everybody. Yeah. There's an attractive android for everybody.
There's a waifu and a boyfu for everyone.
Exactly. And the story is unique in the sense that one of the quotes in the game is, we hope you come back to, after you beat the game, it's more or less, we hope you come back to get more story. And the one unique thing I like about this game is that this game doesn't has a new game plus feature. It's not something I would suggest. It's something I would say is required.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, just like to scale it back a little bit, can you tell us like what the game is, genre-wise, like the story a little bit?
I don't really know. It's kind of weird. This game is about as fractured as the writer. If you look up videos of Yoko Taro, he's like this insane person who wears a mask, hates interviews, and rips people's shirts off and rolls around while screaming the game's name.
Fuck?
Yeah,
wait, what?
He's actually a crazy person. Like, everybody talks about like Hideo Kojima, the guy, who does a lot of the Square Enix games. Before he left. Like, you remember how we always saying, oh yeah, he's kind of crazy. He says crazy things. This dude is actually psychotic.
Jeez.
Like, and borderline creepy on occasions. Like, there was a question a while back where they were like, "Why does the main character 2B, who's the main character in this game, wear high heels?" And his answer was, "I just really like girls, man."
Classic.
I mean,
guy.
it's a long expose, and he's like, "The real reason, I just like girls."
So tell us about the game. Like, he sounds like quite an interesting character, but I'm curious. So, like, from what I've seen, it looks like it's mostly a hack and slash with like shoot 'em up elements, kind of.
It's a spectacle action game, so it has like those flares that you get from like Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
Sure.
He's actually on that too. So very, very, very stylized action melee combat. And then also it kind of twists and turns into multiple other genres seamlessly. And for example, you start the game, it kind of starts off as a twin stick shooter, then it becomes starts the game as a twin stick shooter, then it becomes a top down, almost
Bullet hell?
I guess isometric shooter. It's super
bullet
weird.
hell. Yeah.
And then it goes to a side scroller, and then it goes to like another type of side scroller where like you have like the depth, kind of like Fighting Force, if you want to go all the way back.
Interesting.
And those are just the ones I've seen so far. He constantly changes the genre quite regularly throughout the game, and it's done seamlessly, and it's just kind of throws you off. It kind of gave me a headache the first time I played it, mainly because since you're playing so many different types of genres, some genres like appeal more to mouse and keyboard than they do to controller. So like your third person element is definitely a controller based thing, but the isometric shooter kind of, is good for mouse and keyboard. And then it switches back to like a bullet hell.
Sure.
Which mouse and keyboard is pretty good for that too. But then it goes back to third person, and I'm just like, okay.
That's interesting. So do you feel like you need to use multiple control schemes to like play it effectively?
I've gotten to a point where I'm using the controller exclusively now. That is definitely the better option, simply because when I say seamless transfers, it's very seamless. And the time that it takes for me to put the controller down and like jump to the keyboard, by the time I find the keys, I'm already like dropped half health.
Yeah, that's interesting. I could see that.
Yeah. So I've basically kind of trained myself to effectively use the controller, and it works really well. One thing I have to say about this game, there's two things I really like in terms of like technical polish, and that is number one, the camera. This is one of the first Japanese games I played where I actually have no issue with the camera, given that it has to constantly change through different viewpoints to accentuate the genres that he's just kind of tossing into this game.
Right.
It works really well. It's surprisingly good. And on top of that, aside from it just working well for me, there's also a pretty in-depth option set in the settings for you to change it to suit your needs in particular. So that's super nice. The second thing I really like about the game is its overall polish. Like, this is definitely like a JRPG game that like hails back to the Drakengard series. So you have a lot of good fighting. Frame rates are stable, and overall your progression makes sense. Like you can grind a bit if you want, but you don't have to. It's just super well done. Although
you say grind, like how heavy are the RPG elements in this?
RPG elements are, since you're an android, you level up based on how many enemies you fight. There's a couple of open world segments in this game.
Really? Shit, dude, I'm getting more and more interested by the minute here. Like, because I looked at this and was like, okay, looks kind of like a Devil May Cry-ish, spectacle fighter with a smattering of like bullet hell in it. But it sounds like there's a lot more to this than I was thinking.
Yeah, so it has a couple, and you have like a couple of mini games that you discover as you go. For example, I started fishing as soon as they let me off the reins per se. And there's side quests, though. The side quests are like any other side quests in any other open world game. They're more or less fetch quests. But I'm kind of fine with that because they usually involve me killing like the alien robots that are on the planet. And since the fighting looks so good, I don't care.
Nice.
Go pick up these 5 things, but kill like 15 people in the process. I'm like, all right, I'm down.
How is the combat? Because my understanding is like, while there are a whole bunch of different genres, the like core genre is the spectacle fighter, right?
Yep, the core genre is the spectacle fighter. When you start going into like corridor-based missions, per se, progressing the story, those are when you're going to get your genre changes, and you're always going to go back to your third person perspective.
So,
once they let the reins off.
so how is the gameplay in that? Like, is it a solid spectacle fighter? How does it stack up to like some other spectacle fighters you've played and stuff? Like, does it hang with the big boys?
It hangs pretty well with the big boys. My personal favorite's always going to be Bayonetta. Like, I really like Bayonetta. I'm sorry. I really do. But it holds up really well. I love how she uses her weapons. She actually does not just use swords. She can get gauntlets. She can just go barehanded, and it's super dope how she fights. Like, I feel like when her heavy, you know how you have a heavy attack? You have a light and heavy weapon and a light and heavy attack. And the light weapons, tied to your light attacks, and your heavy weapon is tied to your heavy attacks. I like how her heavy attacks are like, okay, I'm just going to swing the sword, and then I'm just going to use my legs for the rest of it. And I'm like, how are you swinging your sword with your leg? I don't understand.
That's very Metal Gear Rising, like Revengeance, the sword leg.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that apparently, I don't know, well, it's because Japan. Apparently there's like teleportation technology in her weapons, because when she gets done fighting, she doesn't really sheath them. She just kind of just drops them, and then they just appear on her back again.
That's pretty cool.
On the ground for a second if you're not attacking. So this is really funny. Like, she'll do a heavy attack with this huge sword, and then you're not getting me out, and the sword just sits there, and you just walk away from it. It's just like, oh, wait for me.
Does it feel like you're mic dropping every time you finish a battle?
Yeah, it's just like, I don't need the sword. Screw you. Pick this up.
Fight over.
I am so baller. I don't need to put the effort into picking up the sword after I kill you. It'll just come back to me. It's just great. I also one thing I will say though, there's a couple of semi-negatives I would say. For one thing, this isn't really gameplay based. This is definitely not game breaking. But the one thing I've noticed is the game runs in 60 frames perfectly fine. The cutscenes run in 30 frames, and on occasion, at least on my computer, sub 30 frames.
Really? What? Sub 30? On your system? That's shocking to me.
The cutscenes, not the gameplay. I'm like, shouldn't it be?
Well, that's even more shocking because the cutscenes should be pre-rendered, probably, unless they're in-engine, I guess. But then you'd think they wouldn't be 30 frames. Like, you'd think they could have made them 60 if they were in-engine.
Yeah, I think they... I don't know what they were thinking with that. I just don't. I don't get it. But you can tell the difference. It's pretty damn clear.
Yeah.
The cutscenes are great. They're just in 30 frames. Which is kind of like a lot of Japanese animated media is kind of like that anyway. So I got used to it really quickly. But when you jump,
it's rough when you go back and forth. Is the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not so bad. Like, I'm playing through Zelda, and you know how much of a stickler I am for frame rates, but I'm playing through Zelda fine at 30 frames. That said, if I was playing it at 60 frames on my TV, but 30 on the handheld mode or something, I feel like it would be a much bigger problem for me because it would be like drawing attention to it all the time.
Exactly, and that's what the problem is. It's like I don't know whether it's like a technique to make you pay attention, like cutscene time or an oversight.
I'm
I don't
guessing
think it's
the
an
latter.
oversight.
I mean, well, you consider that it's Japan porting a game to PC. It's entirely possible that it's poor optimization causing it.
Yeah,
I mean, let's remember that, do you remember the first Dark Souls? Damn.
Yeah.
Japan is only just now finally getting its head around, doing high-quality PC ports. So maybe it's just a vestigial structure of that.
Yeah, I'm always a little confused about that. But I will say a couple of other things. One more comment in reference to the open world maps. They're very, they're very relatable to the Dragon Guard series, which is a good and a bad thing because first of all, it's familiar and I like that series. But at the same time, they're, once you get past this is a broken down city 1,000 years after a apocalyptic event, you realize that it's not really much to it.
Sure.
Especially after playing
the set
Horizon
piece
Zero
looks
Dawn.
good, but the actual attention to detail not so much.
Yeah, but that's kind of the style that they're going for here. And honestly, if you're not grinding, you're not going to be spending too much time in these open world zones either way. You're only going to be doing them just to farm through your side quests and get on about your business. The story is where you want to go.
Is this really a game where you need to grind? Because you were talking about how this is a game that necessitates multiple New Game Plus playthroughs. So I'm just curious, does your level and experience not carry over? Can you not just play through the game multiple times if you want to level up rather than grinding?
It depends on the person. Some people will like to get up to, certain. I did this with a lot with Kingdom Hearts. Like I'll grind up to a certain level and then progress through the story.
Sure,
But
it's a little different in an RPG,
yeah,
but sure, or in like a
yeah,
a hardcore like traditional RPG, but sure.
yeah. But you can do that. I wouldn't suggest it. There's already a bunch of videos online of how you can farm XP and like get levels relatively quickly. It's not exactly a requirement because you're going to get to max level if you play the game, if you want to get all the story bits.
Sure.
You'll get there real quick. Another thing I liked about it is this game has a certain level of quirkiness that you can only get from a Japanese game. Like the dialogue is very limited in the sense that it's just only for telling the story. So you're kind of just clicking through, and the options that you get are more or less like one or two options where it's like yes or yes, no for like whether or not you want a side quest, or if you're talking to like one of your companions, it's just like yes, and here's a really creepy way of me saying yes.
Interesting.
Like for example, like there's a tutorial where you're like, oh, you've just woken up from your sleep. Let me help you go through some of your settings to optimize your optical sensors. And you can say, okay, or all right, your voice is really soothing right now. And I'm just like, why?
Weird.
Yeah, it was like, why is this here? And so I picked that option, of course, and he, of course, got flustered. And apparently that's cute in Japan. So moving on.
Oh, jeez.
Pieces of advice for this game. Back up your saves. The game starts off by telling you there's no autosave feature in this game. Figure out how to save on your own. So that's definitely brutal. A thing you should be aware of. And there's no autosave feature. Like, you need to save. Another thing to know, too, is definitely back up your saves. And when I say back up your saves, I don't mean don't save before a big fight. Put your saves on a flash drive. Because the guy in this game, actually back up your saves, because there's like 26 endings to this game, and like 20 of them are joke endings, and some of those endings might or might not delete all your save data intentionally.
No.
What?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Okay. So I've had this question literally since you started talking. Does this game seem like a game created by a crazy man? As in, because this guy has complete control, does it take kind of the character of the creator?
This game definitely takes the character of the creator.
That's what I thought.
Like, all the way from like the weird dialogue that's kind of creepy at times, like that dialogue option I told you about, like the joke endings. Like, this game has joke endings. There's true endings and joke endings, and only 6 of them, including all the New Game Plus modes that you should play. I'm not going to tell you what they are or how many,
sure,
or what they are in detail, but you have 6 true endings, but there's like 20 joke endings. So if you make a mistake, the game will just end.
Oh my god!
It's their new game. Yeah. So
kind of piggybacking.
It's kind of like reminiscent of the dating sim games that you hear about a lot in Japan, where like you'll follow like a path, and then that path will end in like this horrible ending. Like, oh, you finally kissed your first love, but then she gets eaten by a shark that jumps out of the ocean. You're like, wait, what? It's kind of like that.
I've been there.
Yeah, so it's definitely like that kind of thing. There's other cute features I like too. Like, if you start up a save, you save at save points that kind of look like vending machines. When you leave the game and then come back later, start the game again, you literally like are the vending machine just opens and your body just gets pushed out of it, which I think is super cool.
What?
Well, you're an android. Your character's an android, so when you're out of the game, it's kind of like, oh, it's just turning the android off, and you're storing it until the next time you come out. Super cool.
Weird.
Also, it has a Dark Souls-this feature. Like, if you die, your body will stay in game, and then your new body will be built, and you have to collect that body to get some of your experience and items back, which is also super interesting.
That is getting so popular. Between between all the Shovel Knight I've been playing, the Dark Souls and stuff, and the Dark Souls and stuff we've been discussing. Like, it seems like there's so much stuff where you get punished hard for dying now. Yeah.
Another thing too is interesting too is like this does have de novo DRM on it. which kind of sucks. But they kind of threw a carrot at you in the sense that if you play in online mode in the game, you'll run across the corpses of people who have played the game and died in that location. And you can actually go to their bodies and either retrieve them, and you get like a pretty reasonable amount of experience for it, plus some of the skill sets that they've assigned in their menu. The second thing you can do is you can revive it, and it'll fight alongside you for a limited period of time.
Interesting. Do they get back Do they lose their items if you take them?
No, it's because it's not a multiplayer game at all. This is like the only.
Oh, okay. So it's more like the Motes of Light in Dark Souls kind of thing, where it's like, people died here about 100 times.
Yeah, but it's super streamlined, so you can just sometimes you can get like a shadow ally to fight with you.
I like that they found a way to make it benefit you, and it's not just like, careful, people die here.
Yeah, so you can either farm them, leave them alone, or revive them to fight alongside you. And it's actually kind of fun to do that. And they don't stay around for too long, but they do stay enough, to get you through a pretty good fight. And the support is always necessary. The last, I'll touch on a couple more things. Your character always has like a combat floaty android thingy. This basically looks like a box that's constantly beside you.
Yeah, it's like a little robot pet, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a pet.
Or it makes me think of the Sentinels from Destiny.
Yeah, kind of like that, but it's always available. And typically what I do in a fight is that it's also upgradable. So it starts off with a machine gun with infinite ammo. So when I'm constantly fighting, I'm constantly just holding down the fire button and just sends a stream of lead while I'm doing my spectacle violence. It's also, if you're not playing on hard or very hard, it's super nice too because there's a lock-on mode. Which allows you to focus enemies, which is super convenient at normal.
When you say a lock-on mode, do you mean it will automatically lock on to enemies as it's like shooting, or do you is it like Z-targeting kind of thing where you're like
it's like targeting.
Focus on the
it's
enemy?
Not auto lock. Yeah,
okay,
definitely
gotcha.
Not auto lock.
Gotcha.
So you can swap between enemies and stuff. You don't have that in hard and very hard mode.
Jeez, stripping out features.
Yeah, now. But on easy mode, and this is something that some people might find a bit polarizing, is that easy mode has what they call auto chips. And chipsets are effectively how you upgrade your character. You collect and I think on occasion craft chips that you can use and purchase them from vendors that you can use to augment your abilities in either attack, defense, or balanced. And what will happen is that these chips can help you basically string out longer attacks for both light and heavy, as well as get you extra features like, I can see like the enemy's level and his health and how much experience I will receive after I kill him and things like that. There's also a map chip as well. Like everything's effectively a chip. If you don't have any chips installed, like it's kind of like a bare game where it's just you and the character. So you have a map chip, you have a HUD chip, you have a health bar chip.
Gotcha. They're like add-on modules.
Yeah, add-on modules. And you can make chipsets that you can swap in between relatively quickly through the menu, depending on the fight that you're in. So that's your RPG element. So you're going to spend a lot of time there as you progress through the game, kind of modifying and making something that fits whatever need that you see, whatever need that you see at the time. Now, I'm going to note on that and then go to the last thing I'm going to talk about, which is in easy mode, there's auto chips. Auto chips are effectively, if you apply auto chips for attack, defense, and a couple of other ones. And like your machine gun, auto chips for like your machine gun buddy, box cute robot thingy that's with you. The game will effectively play itself.
Weird. What? That seems to be increasingly popular, is having like some kind of like auto play type feature.
Yeah, it's effectively autoplay. Like you still have to do input. It can work as an accessibility option because it's not like a one size fit all thing. It's not like everything's auto and everything's not. Like there are actually like 6 chips that you can use to affect 6 different like facets of how you play. So for example, if you're just like really not trying to hold down.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Is can I not have to babysit the bot?
Yeah, if you don't want to babysit the bot and constantly hold down the button for machine gun and you're playing in easy mode, why don't you just throw an auto chip in for that and you don't have to worry about it. It'll just
Interesting. That's cool. I mean, I don't know that this is the type of game that needs this feature, but I always like the idea of having basically a mode that's so that you can just do the story without having to be super good at video games.
Yeah, because some people want to watch the spectacle, but they don't want to like go into like all like the. You don't want to have to get good per se,
right?
And that's kind of a poor term to use because some people just
it's appropriate. It's appropriate. It's the same reason that people asked for easy mode in Dark Souls, because some people just wanted to see the world, but that with like in easy mode in Dark Souls, like it takes away what makes Dark Souls Dark Souls. It's interesting though, because like that's a great example of a game where that's where like get good was popularized, and like. Mm-hmm. That is a game that does require that it has a certain difficulty level.
Yeah. In this game, because I can understand for Dark Souls in particular. But this game is very heavily story-based. And the fact that you kind of have to effectively beat this game multiple times to, really get all the story in, I can see why people, between time constraints, accessibility issues, and also, just not having that big of an interest in excelling at this particular game. They just kind of want to get through the story, and this is a good way to run through the story through the multiple playthroughs that you'll probably go through.
So, out of curiosity, you're saying that they have a big focus on story. What is this an engaging, good story? Like traditionally in games like this, I don't really expect much. Like, I don't expect Devil May Cry to be a magnum opus or anything like that. And in fact, the story almost detracts from what I'm trying to focus on. Like, this seems like a very gameplay-oriented game. Like, how is the story good? Would you recommend the story?
Yes, because this is something I've never experienced before.
It's not just like a super typical, sort of spectacle fighter type thing.
No, it's pretty intense. Like I said, the story, like what they tell you effectively is, how I talked about how like you're basically trying to get the planet back for humans from these robot aliens. The story goes from that to something like, holy crap, I'm on Pluto right now.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that does sound intriguing.
Yeah, and this is through the multiple playthroughs. It's very hard for me to describe it. And it's not so much that the spoileriness is like, because you know how we say New Game Plus, and it's like, okay, well, you're going to play the game again. You're going to go through all the same things again with the same characters, but you're going to have all your skills.
Sure. Really, I just think of New Game. Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're saying you have additional options on that second playthrough that were not there on the first one. Yeah,
but that's kind of not exactly the case. You're getting a completely different perspective. And then the third playthrough, and then the third playthrough is, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then the fourth playthrough is like, what's happening right now? This is nothing like what I expected. And then, you're going from two different perspectives. Well, no, you're going through you're going through multiple perspectives. I'm not going to give you a number. You got to experience this stuff for yourself, man. You're going through multiple perspectives, because it's not, New Game Plus is not, okay, you're playing the game again. It's like, oh, I'm playing kind of a new game. It feels like they kind of stuffed a trilogy into one game.
Interesting. What were you going to say, Tom?
That's you know what?
Hold up, Brandon. Let Tom get a word in edgewise here.
Yeah.
No. It was just a question, kind of along the same lines as the first one I had. I think a big complaint among gamers right now is that a lot of games are becoming cookie cutter, just because obviously companies will have a formula that works and wants to they want to make as much money as they can. Plus, people want more experiences. As I talk about with Dishonored 2, I just kind of wanted to be in the Dishonored environment more, for example. But,
right.
I think the cool thing from what I'm hearing here is that this game just throws a lot at you that you just don't expect, because there's nothing cookie cutter about it. It's a crazy guy who had complete control over making his game. And is the net positive, it sounds like, right? I mean, with all the quirks and stuff, it seems like as a whole, it's a good product, even with kind of the features a crazy person would put into a video game. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, this game is very well done. It runs perfectly well, so this is one of the best ports I've played, aside from, this is on par with Watch Dogs levels of port. Watch Dogs 2.
Right.
Not Watch Dogs, Watch Dogs 2. Almost messed up, I'm sorry,
yes,
guys.
Thank you for the clarification.
The story is something I've never experienced before. I've always had a game where you start it and you end it, and that's it. If you want to do a new game plus, it's like, all right, well, it looks like you really like the game. Why don't you try the story again? But this time with your current level and all the stuff you collected the first time. This is not like that. You still keep what you keep from your previous playthrough, but your perspective has changed, and because your perspective has changed, the story has effectively changed.
It sounds more akin to, say, like the New Game Plus in Dishonored 2, where you can play as the other character.
Right, exactly.
But you still keep all those abilities.
Yeah, but it is kind of like, that's actually a really good like baseline. And then it continues to build off of that.
Right.
Your perspectives keep on changing.
That's cool.
Because of that, the story changes and then continues. And that's the best way I can put it. Because you know, anybody who's listened to the show knows before, like, I can get real close to spoiling things. Like, you know,
Can you, Brandon? Can you?
Spoiling things. I really do not want to spoil this experience. But just trust me, it's like different perspectives change the story and then also progress the story as you play through these different playthroughs.
So to be clear, it's a change in perspective. It's not a choice and consequence, or is it both?
It's both.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's both if there's like 20 endings.
Yeah, that's a good point. Point, I guess.
There's 20 joke endings, and then you have the other 6.
Now, you say 20 joke endings. You don't mean joke for all of them, do you? I mean, I assume that some of those are bad endings, some of those are like okay endings, some of them are actually silly.
These are like joke endings. Like, this is the writer Yoko Taro just being like, I see what you did there. Let me just toss this bad boy in here for you, and credits. And you're just like, wait, what?
Strangeness.
Yeah, it's really, really weird. I was kind of prepared. Like, bro, I finished the game. The first time I played the game, I finished the game in 15 minutes because I died in the first battle sequence. And credits started rolling.
Do you get credits rolling every time you die?
No, it was just in this particular case.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I
was just making sure they weren't pulling some Metal Gear Solid 5 nonsense where they roll the credits like every mission.
No, this one was because I, of course, passed that mission and then subsequently died in the next mission, and then I was able to respawn.
Nice. Well, that's really cool. It sounds like it's a pretty solid game, even for sort of Japanese gamer fans, you know, because there's a lot of people who will play all of the new releases out of Japan, especially the stuff like this that has a little bit of fan servicey kind of stuff in it, like, as you can tell from the design of the protagonist. But it sounds like this has some more mainstream appeal, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, what I would suggest is if you're a fan of like the Drakengard style of gameplay, because that's also a spectacle. If you're a fan of that, you might not have heard of it. It's kind of effectively the same thing as Nier. It's from the same universe, effectively.
Can you give us an example of something that maybe like people from the West have played? Because I don't think most people have played Drakengard.
Revengeance. That's the closest thing
gotcha.
I can go. So yeah, if you were a fan of Revengeance and like that fighting, or Bayonetta, because they're both from the same fold per se in the genre perspective, your major genre, which is the third person view, you're gonna love the way that this game moves. If you kind of want to explore like some of the old school style genres, like the top-down isometrics and things of that nature, and the side scrollers, like, you get just enough of that to keep it fresh, but it doesn't get too boring.
Nice.
It can be hit or miss for some people, though.
Well, I'm sure every once in a while, like, one mode will come up and you'll be like, I fucking hate bullet hell! No!
And then some people might just really like consistency. Some people want, like, I want a third-person JRPG.
Sure.
And I don't want to do side scrolling.
Sure, and so this might not be for them.
Yeah, exactly. But I've only really scratched the surface of this game. There's a lot to it. I haven't even touched hacking. I just want people to experience that because it's super fun. But honestly, hands down, this is a good game. I would definitely suggest it at retail.
Wow.
Great game.
Cool.
If you're a fan, at retail. If you're a fan of Drakengard or Bayonetta or any spectacle melee-based combat game, definitely for you. If you like a good engrossing story, definitely for you. And then even people who might be hesitant because of like maybe the skill cap per se, like the level of skill you need to really progress in this game, the game does have you covered.
I think
if you want to put down.
I think most important question as an American consumer, how palatable is the story?
Very palatable.
Okay, so it's not like crazy, so off the wall that you're just like, this is just too weird, or I can't relate to this. Like, it's not only like in jokes for, anime fans and stuff like that.
No, it's not like that.
Cool.
Actually, to be fair, it does break the fourth wall. Like, we're talking like as close to Japanese Deadpool as we're gonna get. Like, I remember, because the game doesn't technically have a menu to give you help. You actually have to talk to NPCs for them to give you tutorials and hints. And like, there's one quote where I'm saying, "How do I change the difficulty for the game? How do I change the difficulty?" It's literally a question you can ask through your character. And she's like, "Oh, whoa, it's too hard. Oh, well, let's fix that. We don't want you to rage quit now." And I'm just like,
See, I like
quitters.
this. I just think this is hilarious that this guy just did what he wanted. Like, I don't know. I think that's a refreshing change.
Well, yeah,
I'm sure it would drive me nuts, but
Yeah, he had
it sounds
full
fun.
creative control. With Platinum Games, the company that developed it, they were very clear that they wanted him to do everything he wanted. And to be fair, aside from making a good game, one of his quotes says that I really got to do everything I wanted in this game, and I also got to drink more. That didn't really
Jesus.
I'm like, this game is as fractured as his mind is, and it's brilliant, and I love it.
Awesome.
Because the way the story progresses and the curves that you're going to get are going to just throw you off. And I know, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Definitely, this game is definitely worth the money that they're asking for it. And if you're a fan of JRPGs,
is this a full
go
$60?
for it. Huh?
Is this a full $60 guide?
Yeah, this is a full $60.
Okay, just want to make sure. Cool.
Is that, in a weird way, does this make you excited for Kojima's game? Because isn't Kojima's going to be kind of like this, where it's just... I mean, Kojima's probably not as crazy, but like...
Honestly, I cannot... It's hard... Well, here's the thing. I just know you're talking about Death Stranding, am I correct?
Yeah.
I have no idea what to expect, because that game's running on a completely different engine.
I have serious doubts that that's going to be a spectacle fighter.
Yeah,
No, that's fair. I'm just saying more the kind of like, the fact that it could throw you for a loop like this.
I feel like you might be looking at it wrong. Let me give you the analogy that I made to Brandon last night when we had this conversation. Think of Kojima as a Stanley Kubrick, who's like a mad genius, whereas you could think of this developer more as like a David Finch, where he's a crazy genius, but maybe a little more on the crazy.
Yeah, like the best way. Like, he gained a lot of people. He gained internet notoriety for the Platinum Games lead developer. They went to a interview and trade show, and Yoko shows up to the trade show wearing a mask and a scarf with pictures of the mask on it. Saw the developer with his shirt on, basically like rips his shirt off and starts rolling on the ground while like covering his mask with the shirt while screaming the game's name. And everybody was just kind of standing there like, what the fuck is he doing?
Jesus Christ.
Like, when I say,
don't do drugs,
like,
kids.
Maybe I should use a better term. He's not psychotic. He's batshit crazy.
Yeah, Jesus. All right. Wow. I think that's a pretty good round summary of Nier Automata. A lot of fun, worth the money, and batshit crazy.
In a good way.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, I'd like to talk about one more game here if we can before the break. And Brandon, I'm going to give you some time to get a bit of a breather. Tom, both of us played a little bit of Hearthstone this week. I have been kind of I don't know about you, but I've been kind of getting back into it. This seems to happen to me right at the end of every expansion. I'll kind of come back in and be like, oh, I want to pick up a few more cards. I want to make sure I round out my collection. And I want to be like in the meta when the new set starts. That kind of thing,
Yeah.
And so I have been experimenting. If you guys have been following my channel, you'll know that I have been doing a lot of dragon decks. They're probably my favorite deck type. Really like dragon decks, really like the Jade Golem decks. And for the first time this week, I have made my first warrior deck in, almost a year or a year and a half. Like, I never play warrior. But I decided to try out the dragon warrior deck because I wanted to see how it did. And I love it, you guys. Dragon Warrior is awesome. I went on a 7-game win streak.
Exciting, yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I decided to test it out, and my first build of it, I just played it until I lost, and I made it 7 matches, which is pretty solid.
Yeah, so I have a quick question on how that works because the only dragon deck that works for me is a priest, and I
That's
think it's
probably
because
the easiest one to make, I would say. That's the one that I first made and the one that I used to like best.
so the issue I have with a warrior is the only way I can play warrior is Cthulhu, and I basically just shield and shield and shield until I get the Cthulhu to where I need it to be, and then I just drop it on someone, which is obviously a very straightforward, like easy strategy.
Sure.
The big issue I have with that is that with Cthulhu's you tend to need to be able to draw a lot, and that's why my dragon priest deck works. Is that between taking cards from the other person's class,
Yeah.
and having various cards that allow me to draw from the deck, I'm able to have. I like to have like 4 or 5 cards in my hand at all time, if I can. Obviously, certain aggro decks you can't play like that, but
How does that affect Cthulhu now? If you
What
don't mind
now?
me asking, like drawing cards from another person's deck, does it have a positive effect on like the
Oh,
ultimate game, which is Cthulhu?
It neither helps nor hurts because they go into his hand, not onto his deck. So it's not going to
Oh.
decrease his likelihood of pulling Cthulhu, if that's what you're asking.
and to be more clear, that was more a reference to like my dragon deck works with the priest because I just have enough to play until I get the dragons that I need.
Sure.
The issue I have with warriors that like I have trouble drawing cards. Like I
don't
yeah,
really.
am I missing something?
No, I have 2 draw cards in my entire deck, and they are, of course, Azure Drakes. Those are the only cards in the whole deck that have me draw, except for technically I also run Curator, which draws a Beast, Dragon, and Murloc from your deck and puts them in your hand, but I don't really consider that draw because it's like turn 7, whatever. I mean, I guess it technically is. But those are the only 2 draw cards I have in the whole deck. This deck runs mostly off of like having really solid creatures and having a really good mana curve because it tends towards the lower mana costs. And so like it's actually not very dragon heavy. I think there's like 8 to 10 dragons in the whole deck probably. But it also runs a couple of Murlocs. It's got a little mini pirate theme going on as well.
Does the pirate give you a weapon? Is that what you
I
play that?
use N'Zoth's First Mate to get my rusty hook, and then I also, but I also run what's he called? What's his name? The South Sea Deckhand, who has charge when I have a weapon equipped, and he's 1 mana,
Yep.
1 mana 2/1. And then in addition to that, I also recently picked up a Patches the Pirate, the legendary pirate.
Right.
He's a 1 mana 1/1 charge, and after you play a pirate, you summon him directly from your deck. So if I play any pirate card, I can just put him into play that turn, and he can attack. He's pretty solid. And so those guys have their own little mini synergy that works really well for very early game. I almost always get a pirate to play in the first 2 turns.
So yeah, but like what? I guess I don't understand how that helps your dragons then. Like what is the
Because
purpose of
Dragon's
dragons?
weakest point is the very beginning of the game. There are almost no low mana cost dragon cards in a warrior dragon deck because most of the low mana cost dragons are class cards. Like for the priest, it's I'm trying to think of. There's a couple of priest cards, priest dragons.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
are a little cheaper.
probably the best priest card is outside of the dragons that you have is like that lady that if you're holding a dragon, you get to draw a dragon. You almost always get a legendary.
The Nether Spite something. Yeah, I know who you're talking
I
about.
know we're on the same.
It's the gnome. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So my question is, which dragons do you put in that deck?
Dragons I am running. Let's see here. I always keep 1 fairy dragon in my dragon decks. I don't really play the fairy dragon. I use it as a card to hold on to so that I can always play or activate my dragon abilities. Though it is nice in a pinch. I run a pair of Twilight Guardians. Those are the 4 mana 2/6 battle cry. If you're holding a dragon, gain 1 attack and taunt. I run a pair of Azure Drakes, and that is all of my dragons. But then I have a couple more dragon cards. So I run
So you don't have like the ones I use is like one of them drops your opponent's health to 15 automatically, or you can bring your own up to 15 if you're that low.
Alexstrasza. Yeah, no, I don't run Alexstrasza. But I do run other dragon cards that are not dragon creatures. That's what I was trying to explain. Is like I run, for example, I run Alexstrasza's Champion, who's a 2 mana 2/3, and if I'm holding a dragon, it gets 1 attack and charge. So it's a 2 mana 3/3 charge, which is insane.
Interesting.
And I'm also running Let's see, I'm running a pair of Blackwing Corruptors, which are in all my dragon decks. They're the 5 mana, 5/4. If you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage to any character, which is really good. And I also run... Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention, I do have 2 other dragons. I have a pair of Draconid Crushers, which are the 6 mana, 6/6 with the battle cry that if your opponent has 15 or less health, he gets +3/+3 when he comes into play, which is great. He's a 6 mana, 9/9.
Yep. So, cool. So, yeah, that's an
6 mana,
interesting...
9/9? Holy
Yes,
crap.
but only if your opponent has 15 or less life. Otherwise, he's a 6 mana, 6/6, which is not very good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I was going to say, I usually, at least in the priest deck, I have Alex Straza, and I use, I can't remember its name, but it allows you to draw 2 class cards from your opponent's class.
Oh, sure, it's like Mind Games or something.
Yeah, but no. So I have that, but then there's also a dragon that lets you do that.
Gotcha. I don't think I run that one. I'm more into like what is it, Bookworm and stuff like that. I don't know. I have a bunch of different decks though that I run. Like I have a priest dragon deck, warrior dragon deck, warlock dragon deck, and I think I have one more that I'm blanking on. Mage dragon deck. Yeah, I have 4 dragon decks, so I do a lot of dragons.
And which one's your favorite?
Warrior. I'd say in order of enjoyment, I'd say probably it's warrior, priest, mage, and then warlock.
With the mage one, do you have the dragon that's like a 4 attack, 12 health, where you get like +5?
Yep, I have Malagos. I picked up Malagos when I was going through my deck buying phase, or sorry, my pack buying phase.
Yeah,
so,
see, if I had that one, I would play a mage.
Yeah, I run that for Malagos because it's also a mid-range mage deck, so I use a lot of spells.
Do you also have the one where if you cast a spell, you get a fireball? Because that legendary.
No, I don't have Antonidas, unfortunately. But
wow.
But my mage deck does have some pretty solid dragons in it as well, and also runs just some pretty cool cards. Honestly, though, there's a reason it's my 3rd to favorite.
Okay, so I have a quick question. Real quick.
Yeah.
You said mid-range for the mage deck.
Yeah.
And you tend to use more spells. What's the difference between like high, low, and mid in terms of like how you outfit your deck?
It all has to do with your mana curve. So basically, like every turn in Hearthstone, since I know you're not a Hearthstone player, every turn in Hearthstone you gain 1 additional maximum mana, and you're spending that pool of mana each turn. So if I play a 2 mana creature on turn 2, I have 0 mana until next turn, and then I'll have 3, and then the turn after that 4. And so mana curve is about having the average mana cost of your creatures hit a high, medium, or low mana cost, which is going to be like usually you want an average mana cost of 3 to 4 in a low, like in like a bottom range, I guess. You don't really say that, but in a smaller range deck. Then you have mid-range, which is spells and creatures that are mostly like 4 to 6 mana. And then you have like the high-end stuff for like some of the Druid or Cthulhu decks that like the average mana cost can be like 6 to 8.
Oh, okay.
But generally, most good decks have an average mana cost of about 4. Mid-range mage is specified as that because they use early game control spells like Frostbolt and Arcane Missiles to fend off low mana cost enemies.
Ah, okay, now I get it.
And then they can hold off until the mid-game when they can start laying creatures that synergize with spells. Stuff that'll like let you draw cards every time you play a spell and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's just it's a different meta type, basically. But I didn't have a ton to talk about with Hearthstone. I just wanted to mention how much fun I'm having with the Dragon Warrior.
Yeah.
Definitely don't completely shut out Warriors, because that's something I did. I don't really play Warrior or Rogue barely at all, and I wanted to make a point of doing it, and I do not regret it.
Yeah, I'm with you, actually. The Rogue, you have to figure out combos, basically.
The Rogue, you basically have to have, like, all the legendaries for it to work, right? There's so many key, like, really high dust cost cards that all Rogue decks run, like Leroy and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I guess I don't have enough to have a great Rogue deck. I've also seen a decent Rogue Jade Golem deck, but
I have 3 Jade Golem decks as well, and Rogue is my least favorite.
Yeah, I haven't figured it out. The other,
it's all about the Jade Shaman. So good.
Yeah, I was gonna say the other one is the druid is pretty good with the
that's
bow.
my second favorite. That's the one everyone starts with, I think, because it's like the easiest to. It's most like a normal druid deck, but holy shit, Jade Shaman is so fucking fun because it has control, which is like not common in a shaman deck. Like it's got a good amount of control.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and you get there's a weapon that gives you a Jade Golem, which is pretty rad. You get the Jade Claws.
Oh, that's
right.
Cool. I don't know exactly what's going on, but it sounds dope.
The final comment I had is I don't think I've ever had this happen before. I picked up a deck that had a legendary in it, and I already had the legendary. And that's like the most disappointing thing ever because you go from thinking, oh, I got a sweet card to like base.
You got your first legendary duplicate, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
and it's the Unshackled, something Unshackled, the Warlock where you get to drop all your demons.
Yes, it's like
super useful.
Zeximar or something. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Super incredibly useful card, but not good to have two of them. So I was disappointed because I went from that to being like basically I got 400 mana in that pack. But whatever.
Is it Cruel the Unshackled?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is an amazing card because basically I load that deck with all the demons that cost you something, like it either takes away from your health or whatever. And if you can just hold all those guys at once, or you can, there's a card that creates a demon for you. I can't remember. It's a little witch lady. But if you can hold a whole bunch of those and then drop the Unshackled, it's like impossible to beat because all of a sudden you have all these high attack cards that don't,
Warlocks have a couple of like GG legendaries. They've got Jiraxis, they've got that one.
Yep.
They've got the Unshackled, and then they also have what is it? It's the Dreadlord. I can't remember which Dreadlord it is, but the Dreadlord that like it makes your hero immune or something ridiculous. Like your hero and all your minions are immune as long as he's in play. It's such horse shit. Every time he gets played, I just quit.
So I don't have that. I don't have that one. I wish I had that one.
Is it
I have
Mal'Ganis?
Jiraxis, and Jiraxis is great, except Jiraxis can bite you in the ass if you play it wrong. So
well, definitely, but if you play it right, it's one of the better legendaries, at least one of the better original legendaries.
Yeah, it's I've seen. I'm still figuring out that deck, but I've seen it used, and it's like you almost kind of cry when it happens because you usually have the person down like to 5 health, and then all of a sudden they get like a whole new hero. Yeah.
Okay, here it is. Sorry, I misquoted Mal'Ganis' abilities, and it is Mal'Ganis. I was right. Yes. He's a 9 mana 9/7. Your other demons have +2/+2. Your hero is immune.
Yeah, so pretty much you just.
And Brandon, if you don't know what immune means, it means you literally can't take damage.
Like not at all?
It means I could attack you with every minion on my side of the board, but if Mal'Ganis is in play, you would take no damage. I can kill Mal'Ganis. No, your hero is immune. Even if your hero attacks one of my minions with a weapon, he will not take damage.
Yeah, it's absurd.
It's a ridiculous card. I hate it so much. It definitely has counters, but I remember last time it got played, I was playing a druid deck with no removal, and I was just like, oh, fuck, I'm done. Just like concede.
Huh.
But
that's why you meant by quit. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen you quit a game. I've seen you concede a couple though.
Yeah, so you concede when you're like, I want to play more matches and I got time for this. But that's I want to cut this short a little bit just because we are already almost an hour into the show and we still have more games to talk about. So we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break. But guys, don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Yeah.
And we're back. All right. So before we get to the news here, there's one more game that is probably on all you guys' mind, and fortunately has been on Brandon's mind as well. So Brandon, without any further ado, could you tell us about Mass Effect Andromeda?
Oh yeah, damn right. Let's start off with this one. So first off, let me just say this game is definitely a guilty pleasure. I'm sure anybody who's been following the news knows that this game definitely has some pretty glaring issues.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because the game, as a functioning action shooter RPG with a sci-fi element, is pretty functional. But at the same time, it's also a very heavily story-based game and relies on character development of not only your main protagonist as well as your supporting cast. And
that party.
That's one of the major, and that's definitely one of the biggest major failings. So let's just jump right into it. So Mass Effect, if you guys don't know, Mass Effect Andromeda is the sequel to the Mass Effect trilogy, effectively. The story starts off effectively after the events of Mass Effect 2. You're part of what they call the Andromeda Initiative, which is a initiative to send a large group of explorers from all the races in Mass Effect, effectively, to the Andromeda Galaxy on a 600-year journey to colonize another galaxy.
Jeez, are you on their advertising platform? Are you going to get some more colonists to come out?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to.
Cool. So they have found a reasonable way to travel without mass relays, then, I take it?
Technically not. The mass relays in the series are primarily for traveling within the galaxy, but however, like
right, that's a fair point. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, interstellar travel, like between galaxies, is a massive distance, and the Mass Effect relays are only local, at least as we know so far in the lore, to the Milky Way galaxy for story.
Gotcha. Right. I had forgotten. You're right. Thank you for the refresher. I had forgotten about that.
Yeah. So we'll just stick to they're there in the Milky Way only because story. So they actually went kind of the old school 80s route where they have these giant arc ships. I think Battlestar Galactica even has some of this stuff. It's very classic sci-fi from like the 80s and 90s.
Sure.
Everybody's in cryostasis and they ship off on a 600-year journey. They leave in 2185 if you're a Mass Effect fan, right after the events of 2, and then 630-something years later, they appear in their designated location that they scouted out centuries in advance. And they had scouted out golden worlds, and they were like, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk. We already know where we're going to go. Things going to be great. We're going to be bros in space in another galaxy.
They thought they had Goldilocks planets.
Yeah, but it turns out that things didn't exactly go as planned, and the story effectively pans out from there. You play as one of the Ryder siblings. You can either be a male or female protagonist. You can choose either or and customize their features. I actually went out of the way to customize both the male and female Ryder, simply because it helps to customize the features of your father figure in the game, which is also pretty important.
So you say that they're siblings. If you choose, like, say, the female character, is the male character like an NPC in the game?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Okay, I didn't realize that. That's it. That's cool. That's very Fallout.
Yep, he's referenced in the game, and he will play a role.
Cool. That's neat. I like that idea. Actually, it makes it kind of jives a little better than the weird like. No one. It's fallen into antiquity what gender Shepard is or whatever their justification was, like for being able to play as either male or female. I think that's kind of cool. I like that idea. It gives it a more customized experience, I would imagine.
Yep, and the story progresses effectively, and you take the role of the Pathfinder, who is effectively the chosen one, I guess you could call it per se, just like in the previous Mass Effect. You're like, oh, you're a Spectre. No, this time you're a Pathfinder, because it's exploration, new galaxy and stuff.
Cool.
And you progress the story from there, trying to effectively save this seemingly doomed expedition. And that's as far as I want to go there, because the story is definitely interesting and will pan out from there. I think everything else at that point is a spoiler. The only thing else I'll say about the story is it effectively plays like a B movie. 80s style B movie sci-fi flick.
So it's corny? So you mean it's corny?
Yes. I think it's kind of corny.
Okay.
But in a good way.
Sure.
In a corny,
endearingly so.
Way. Yeah. So let's start. I want to start off with the bad because everybody.
One sec, really quick. Tom, did you have a question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you may have answered it kind of with the amendment, but the story's good, or like, because I feel like I play a Mass Effect game for two reasons. It's the story, and it's the crew, and I've heard very like mixed opinions on this.
Okay, from my personal perspective, I would say that the story is good, but it is not as inspiring as the first trilogy, or the original trilogy of Mass Effect. The first trilogy of Mass Effect was pretty, endearing and kind of inspired in the sense that it played a lot of interesting roles. we talk about you're the Spectre, this super soldier trying to save the universe. You know, when you really play the game, you realize that most people in the game universe think you're the crazy guy with the beard holding the sign saying the end times are nigh.
Right.
You have to remember, like, the main antagonist in the Mass Effect series wasn't considered a threat till the third game.
Right. Yeah, you spend most of the game like ranting like a paranoid dude on the street corner.
Yeah, your primary antagonists in the first two games were urban legends and like unproven myth. So this game, and there was dramatic irony in there, and the fact that you as the player and you know projecting onto your character know things are getting real, but nobody's listening to you.
Right. So sorry, go ahead.
So now moving on to Mass Effect Andromeda's story. Andromeda's story is, you know, primarily exploration. You know, you're trying to your purpose is not to be a soldier. Your purpose is to explore and help and do everything you can to help save this, you know, this initiative to settle this new galaxy in whatever way possible. And your antagonist is trying to prevent that.
So how does that relate to like the quality of the story and the quality of the and your crew?
So in the first game, in the first set of games, you know, your crew were primarily soldiers or military scientists, effectively. You know, in this game, you got people from all different walks of life. You have, you know, doctors. You have kind of people who are like, yeah, I was a disaster specialist. You know, I think I've only met like 2 actual like soldiers in the game so far as like characters with like serious dialogue.
Sure.
So that kind of changes the dialogue point, changes their demeanor. Also, there's more reasons. Like, you're not, instead of asking like what the next mission is, you're asking, why did you come on this trip? And there's like this whole different set of reasons. It's refreshing if you played the previous 3 games, but you combine that with a story that so far is engaging, but doesn't seem to hold like that scaled interest that I had in the first 3 games.
Do you have the same like level of like intrigue and like kind of I don't know, fellowship that you had with your party? Because it sounds like I get that it's a different party, but is it as compelling of a party? Like, what was his name, Garrus or whatever, who was such a badass in the original trilogy?
Yeah,
Rex, and then also
Rex,
also that's not who I was thinking of. Who's the guy who's like also a Spectre, I think, but he's an alien. He's like blue. Who am I thinking?
Oh yeah,
he's got kind of a Martian looking head.
Yeah, he's Solarian. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
But yeah, so like, how do you feel about? I'm looking it up because that's not it, but that's fine. Like, tell me, how do you feel like the party stacks up compared to the last party, where like I was invested in those characters, like I wanted them to like me and stuff because they were cool, well fleshed out characters. It sounds like the roles of these characters have changed, but how is the quality of the characters?
The characters quality is pretty good. They shine very well when you're in your little hub ship, your personal spaceship. There's a lot of dialogue. They're very likable.
Damn it, you guys! Garrus is his name. I was right the first time.
Oh, he's not a Spectre.
Oh, well, whatever he is. The dude with the...
I mean, there were so many. Like, I liked Morden, and Morden was just like the nerdy scientist. He was just cool.
Morden's like nerdy old man.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but the character, your supporting cast or your team per se is very likable. How they interact with each other is pretty hilarious. Because some people just don't like other people, which is hilarious, which is just funny. Like, don't tell me how to do my job, bro. Which can lead to some cringe moments, because you're just kind of like, we're supposed to be like a team that's cohesive, but since they're not like actual professionals,
So
in combat environments, like they're just like, bro, you didn't do that right. I'm like, stop telling me what to do.
So this
they're
is
almost in some ways kind of feel immature.
Yeah, it sounds kind of
when they're fighting.
Sounds kind of immature. I remember hearing some of the other like dialogue lines online. I haven't gotten my hands on it yet, but I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts and reviews on it, and it sounds like a lot of that dialogue is pretty hammy. Like, stop arguing or I'll turn this ship around and crap like that. Where I'm like, to me, that seems like it would detract a little bit from the characters. Where it's like, this is like, character feels like it was written by a TV writer.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. I find it refreshing, personally, because they're kind of like dudes who don't exactly know what they're doing.
Sure.
and they're just taking out their frustrations on each other in the most hilarious way possible. Their dialogue changes as you, of course, progress the story, but you'll experience that later. But the story, for me, I kind of walked into this game kind of cool too. I wasn't overtly excited when they announced the game, and although I'm still compelled to play the game, I'm not getting that like, oh man, like when I played the first Mass Effect, like wow.
Yeah, when we were talking last night, you were kind of saying you went into it with kind of lowered expectations, and then after playing it, you kind of had to again just say like, okay, even still, I should lower these a bit more, just because remember that it sounds like it's not exactly the Mass Effect sequel everyone was hoping for, but it's not a bad game either.
Exactly. I didn't so much lower my expectations, but like kind of change my perspective on like how I'm perceiving them. Because every dialogue encounter I experienced in Mass Effect, with the exception of like the exceptional flirting, was like from a military perspective. Like it's always the mission.
I don't know. Some of it's pretty amazing. What about when you can like deal with that reporter?
Yeah, where you can like
God, that was so good.
Her in the face.
So good.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah, it's like the mission's like, and then or you could just like interrupt her and be like, I fought in the battle for this thing, and these are the people that lost their lives, and I'm a soldier, and I cry because I'm emotional because soldiers.
All right, take it easy.
In this game, yeah, that's kind of how it works. And then you play this game, and it's just kind of like there's dialogue options. Like there was a character introduction, and usually you state your name and your purpose. In this game, I picked the dialogue option, which was just one word, wow, and my character basically said, "That was super cool, bro." Just like, oh my god,
that's pretty funny,
bro.
Oh, she actually said, "Bro."
No, she didn't say, "Bro."
Okay, good. You scared me there.
That was really cool.
Interesting.
The character's response was like, "Yeah, that was pretty cool." I'm just like, what?
I'll be honest. I don't know that this dialogue or writing is for me, per se, because to me, this sounds like kind of lame. I mean, it sounds...
It's like it's 80s...
But that's not really what I want from a Mass Effect game. Like, Mass Effect is supposed to be my space opera, not my, like... Like, I expect Mass Effect to be, Lord of the Rings, not, like, Flash Gordon.
Yeah, no, I get you. And it's going to be hit or miss for people. I find it enjoyable, but I can definitely see longtime fans being turned off by it because it's definitely kind of a stark turn from what we were expecting.
I'm bummed out because as someone who played the first Mass Effect and a couple hours, maybe about halfway or a little less into Mass Effect 2 and then kind of dropped off, I was really hoping that this was going to be my opportunity, because Mass Effect 3, they say it's like, oh, it's got the best, refinement of all the systems and this and that, but I didn't want to play the last game in the trilogy without being fully into the trilogy, and so I was hoping this was going to be a new jumping off point where I would have the quality of Mass Effect 3's, like, mechanics with a new story so I wouldn't feel left out. But it sounds like this is Mass Effect in name, if not in practice, a little bit.
I don't know. Like, I feel like the game can bear the Mass Effect name, but it's
like Mass Effect is a very serious series to me. Like, it's always been very, very serious. It's people who can never take off their armor or they'll die, and it's what was it, the I can't remember what it was, the thing killing off all of the big red dudes.
Genophage.
Yeah, thank you. The genophage, or whatever it was, xenophage. Yeah. And, like, it was the grim, dark reapers are coming to end the world. Like, I kind of liked that gritty sci-fi universe. So, I don't know. I think I may give this one a pass, but it does sound interesting. Yeah. I'm curious, can you try and sell me with the combat? Because I hear the combat is pretty solid.
Yeah, the combat's super good. The combat is effectively... how do I describe this? They took away some bits, which I am confused as to why they did. Like the fact that you can kind of control your teammates.
Yeah, you can't give squad commands anymore, right?
Yeah, you can tell them where to go, but you can't tell them to use like their overload.
You can't be like, use this ability on this guy now.
Yeah, which I was confused as to why they did that.
That's a bit of a rubber.
But at the same time, your trait is that you can consistently switch. You can fully customize. They've completely unlocked the skill tree. You can be anything you want. So you can be a soldier. You can be a soldier with biotics, or you can be a tech guy.
Couldn't
that
you
has
kind of do that
infiltrator skills.
Am I mistaken? Couldn't you kind of do that in the first one? Like,
Nope.
okay.
No,
I thought that
No,
you like
you
were
either-
putting points
yeah, you
into
either-
different slots. No, you're right. You're right. I remember now. Yeah, so that is nice, giving you a little bit more freedom there. Do you have a lot of options? I hear they've added some pretty cool new biotics.
Yeah, the biotic skills are super cool. The only kind of sad part about the biotic skills is that you can only like have 3 assigned at any one time, and I really want more than 3.
You want to just be a straight up mage.
Yeah, dude, because like you can string your biotic attacks together, which makes things super interesting.
It sounds like
for
there's
example,
a cool variety too. Like I hear there's like a charge and stuff like that.
Yeah, so for example, what I like to do is what you can do is like you can use a biotic ability that basically sucks up a group of enemies into one tight knit group. You can use your jetpack, which is also new to the series, which gives you verticality, to jump up over the air and then use a like warp smash on them while they're stuck in that black hole.
Nice.
Because the black hole is doing damage to them, but then you're just like
using them
finished.
Zarya strats.
Yeah, so it's super super flexible in that portion, and I cannot get enough of like trying out new abilities. Also,
Nice.
Since you have this boost ability on your jetpack, you can effectively like boost dodge. And since I set up a lot of infiltrator perks, which allow you to kind of do the stealthy kind of like flanking attacks,
Yeah.
when I boost, I effectively blink like Tracer.
Nice.
Like literally blink like Tracer in Overwatch, and I'm just
Nice.
like, this is so cool. So
combat
really
sounds
excited
pretty
about
solid.
that.
How is the partner AI? Because you can't control them. So like, how do they do in combat? It just got really awkward in here.
Like in combat, they do pretty well, but when like you're kind of like boots on the ground, like walking around to point, like I feel like their brains only kind of come into effect when there's an enemy to shoot. But
Interesting.
like I've seen them like having trouble following me on occasion.
So
and then
maybe
they'll just
not the
appear.
best nav meshing.
Yeah, not the best nav meshing, but like combat's pretty solid. I don't find myself hindered by their movements by any sense. And
Sure,
they actually
but are
do
they
support.
contributing? That's what I am curious about. Like, since they've taken away a big part of your toolkit, because like for me, I remember I would run with the Asari girl as like my
Liara, or not
Liara.
Liara, something to Sony, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
the blue girl. I would have her
Yeah.
be my like biotic specialist, and I remember I would always have her like overload weapons and like lift people and stuff, and then I was playing as the was it not Spectre, everybody's a Spectre, the like stealth sniper class.
So you're
and
an
I would just
infiltrator.
yes, I was an infiltrator, and I would just light them the fuck up while they're like floating off the ground disarmed. And like I liked it because I didn't need to have those biotics. I could focus on damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what I did was I used to play soldier. I used to run whoever was my tech specialist, so that they would overload shields and then cause weapons to like discharge and not be able to shoot. And then I would use the biotic abilities of the blue girl, let's just call her that because it's easier that way, to effectively like jumble them up and soften them up, and then I would just finish them.
Exactly.
Like,
So how close is it to being able to maintain that now that you can't do direct commands? Do your allies still helpfully like are they still like key to combat, or are they more like supporting?
I can't count
fire?
how many times that like one of the first people you get in the game, like his initial skill is like having grenades, because that's an upgrade apparently. It's always been an upgrade. I haven't count how many times where I've come up against a shield enemy, and usually you have to soften them up. Where like I'll come in invisible and flank on the side, and then you'll just see that grenade come in and blow off their shield.
So
and then I immediately
maybe not
dash.
going for exactly what you're going for, but at least helpful.
Yeah, like I said, they participate, and like that's happened multiple times. Like where
that's
I'm about
cool.
to attack, and like they're assisting.
Yeah.
If anything, at the absolute worst, they're like taking their attention, and at the absolute best, like they're like actually softening these guys up.
That's
and putting
awesome.
them down.
So, do you want to talk to us at all about? I know you're not all the way into the game yet, so you feel free to bow out of this. But I'm just curious. Have you done any of the planetary development stuff? Because I know that's a huge part of the game is like terraforming and building colonies.
Yep, and I've done some of that. So I've worked a lot on Eos, which is the first planet you go to. It's basically a desert planet. It's pretty interesting. What you have is what you do initially when you are sitting on a planet is you open up like these field outposts, which are basically like like small robot box that comes down from the sky that allows you to fast travel.
Okay, sure.
There's nothing you really do. You just show up into an area where it's supposed to land, and it'll automatically show up.
Gotcha.
Once you hit the area of influence, and that serves as a tool to help you deal with atmospheric issues, like if it's super cold, super irradiated, or what have you.
Sure.
And what you do is your initial step is to make the environment more viable. And this is kind of where we start jumping into a bit of story here. But let's just call them tools.
Terraforming tools, we'll call them.
Yeah, terraforming tools that assist in that have to do with the story. So we're just going to call them tools.
Sure.
That terraform.
Yep.
Once you get to, and then as you do things like that, clear out bandits, clear out like the antagonist.
Sure.
You get viability points, and as you get viability points, you can spend them to basically open up these settlements. And these settlements can be military based, they could be science based, or they could be colonist based. You know, in each time you do that, you get a perk based off of that. And as you build that settlement up, you also build up what we call the Nexus, which is basically Andromeda's version of the Citadel.
So it's more of like a flat kind of art. It sounds like it's more like upgrading the villa kind of thing in Assassin's Creed versus doing full on terraforming, or sorry, getting full on Fallout style bonuses, where you'd be like really meticulously designing the base. It's more like the base you're hidden certain ranks, and the planet just is upgrading and giving you flat bonuses.
Yeah, it gives you flat bonuses, and you don't particularly have a control of the order of what's getting installed and what's being created, but you don't have like finite control. Like, I'm going to put this box here.
Okay.
And here's going to be my my little greenhouse. Oh wait, it's a little. We change the angle a little bit.
Do you get I get bonus metagel from my greenhouse?
Yeah.
Okay, so at least you do get like relevant items and stuff from them. They produce some kind of resource.
Yes, they do. It all depends on which type of settlement you're trying to set up. So, if it's military based, you're going to go more you're going to get more weapon modifications and weapons and armor and things like that. If you go more scientist based, you're going to get like more of your techie stuff, like medicine skills and more like consumable items for weapons per se. Like, I have like this cryo ammo and stuff like that.
Cool.
And then colonist based has its own set of things as well.
So, out of curiosity, since we are running out of time a little bit to talk about Mass Effect, can you really quick? I know that you mentioned weapons and armor. I know that there's supposed to be some kind of crafting system in this game. Can you talk to us about that for a quick minute?
Yep, there's a crafting and modification system. As you explore the game, you'll find blueprints, and as you scan different objects that kind of fit in like 4 different categories, you'll gain points in those 4 different categories, which will allow you to effectively research and build said items, which is weapons, armor, and modifications primarily.
Cool. And you said that the weapons and modifications and stuff are pretty involved, right?
Right. If you've played the first Mass Effect game, you'll be familiar with it, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. I'm happy they're back, but at the same time, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why you guys weren't in the next 2 games.
Oh, right. Inventory management.
Yeah. And that's definitely a thing as well. That can also be upgraded as you progress through the game as well.
One last question before we move on here. I'm just wondering, have you had a chance to try the mobile companion app?
No, I have not. I was thinking about downloading it, but then I forgot because I started playing the game.
Okay, next week you'll have to let us know, because that is the other thing I want to talk about, but I'm guessing you haven't done a ton of this, is that there are real-life timed missions that are tied into the app, so you can send people out to do them when you are not there.
I am slightly familiar with that.
Yes, but let's hold off until next week, because we really are out of time here. You want to just give us a quick summary of your thoughts on it so far, and then we'll move on to some news?
Yep, this game, I have to say, I'm happy. I'm a personal fan of the series, and I'm happy with the direction that they're kind of going. Ultimately, given the glaring flaws technically, that truly does take away from the experience. Personally, I love it, but I cannot recommend it unless you're willing to deal with these pretty glaring flaws. And I'm sure you know which ones they are. Aside from the facial animations and like the body animations, there's also the camera angles that can kind of be wonky. And this is a game that is as much action-based as it is, also has its main strength in the character development that you do between your character and other characters, and that is very flawed. The best way to describe it, I'm usually very gentle when I talk about this kind of stuff. Let me just say that this is like absolute crap. Like, the animations are trash, especially for humans. And the worst thing, what bothers me the most is the fact that it's very inconsistent. Like, I've seen some awesome moments where I'm like, oh, that's so cool. But at the same time, I've also seen moments that fully take me out of the experience. And it happens with frightening regularity. And there's no set level that I can give it.
So at the moment, it sounds like you're saying, like, fans of the series, you may be willing to put up with it, but otherwise people might want to wait for a price drop or patching.
Honestly, it's not even a patch drop. I would wait till they fix it.
Sure. Okay.
I won't dwell on this. Henry, from what I've read and what I've heard from Brandon, which is pretty similar, I feel like I'm just not going to get this game at retail. I'll probably pick it up at some point.
I don't even know if exactly. Yeah, I'm feeling similarly. I'm not even sure if I'll pick it up on sale, just because I need a game that's consistent if it wants me to invest over 100 hours into it.
Exactly. That's a super important point. Even fans of the series, until they fix some of these glaring bugs, I wouldn't suggest you pick it up. I don't care about it, unless it's like the price drop is like $15-$20.
Or you're a big fan.
Sure. Yeah, if you're a big fan, sure. But honestly, I can't even suggest it even if you are a big fan. I love it, but those flaws take away too much for me to be able to not be able to suggest this without having second thoughts.
Definitely.
So hold off till they fix it. That's where I'm going to stay at.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, I will look forward to hearing some more about it next week once you've put some more time into it. But for now, let's go ahead and move on to some news. Fortunately for us, considering how we're running a little bit late here, there was actually a pretty slow news week this week. We did not have a ton of stuff. However, there were a couple of highlights I wanted to touch on really quick, just to keep you guys in the loop. So, first up, we have a couple of Zelda stories. Number one, this is a warning. I caught this from a Kotaku article, and I'm super grateful about it. This is a huge thing. The Nintendo Switch has some really weird manner of managing save data. Not only have we found you can't back up or transfer save data, but also it appears that depending on the game, save data is tied per local profile. So this is not your Nintendo account, but it's like, think of it as, how you can have multiple profiles on, say, an Xbox or something like that.
Right.
The issue is, in Zelda, and likely in other games that feature a one-save style system, if you start a new game without changing to creating a new profile and logging into the game with that, it will just erase all of your save data.
What?
It will just.
This is amazing that this happens.
It will just erase it, overwrite it.
That's even worse than Nier, where it's at least they tell you that we're going to delete your save. It's part of the game.
I'm sure they do say I'm sure I actually know they do say they're going to delete it, but I think that most people's assumption would be that it's more of like a Skyrim situation where they're like, hey, make sure you've done an actual save, because if your last 200 hours were all auto saves and quick saves, that's going to get overwritten immediately. I think so. They give you that, and that's kind of what I thought they meant, but they actually mean we will wipe out the saves. So yeah, if you want to do a new game, which I'm planning on doing in the not too distant future, so thank God I caught this article, make sure you make a new profile on your Switch.
God, man, that's nuts.
Yeah, it happens, but it's annoying for sure.
Yeah, but then again, it also is Nintendo. So
yeah, exactly. Next up, we have a little bit of news that is kind of really weird, and it's not like hard news. This is more something I've been reading around on Reddit, and I caught this on a Reddit thread in PC Gaming. This is really interesting to me. They have already okay, so there's this emulator called CEMU, and it is already capable of emulating Breath of the Wild, almost perfectly. Yeah. It runs slightly worse than it does on the Switch. I'd say it's maybe 5 to 10 frames slower, and besides that, the entire game runs in it. So this kind of sucks for Nintendo. Basically, the game has already been more than cracked because it can be run outside of its native operating system, and yeah, this is troubling. I don't know. I'm of two minds. I'm always I always think it's really interesting when emulation and the rate, the time it takes for people to convert from super weird old closed systems to being able to run stuff on a PC and stuff like that, with some frame rates being tied to clock speed and other things like that. However, this is actually a case where I'm going to pretty strongly take a position you won't hear me do often, and that is, I really think this sucks ass for Nintendo. I respect that this is a first-party title. I respect that this is an exclusive title, and I think it should remain exclusive. This is a game that is considered by a lot of people to be one of the best games ever made, and considered by most people, I think, to be the best Zelda game ever made. And the fact that it is already available, and it's also the system seller, it's the launch title, and it's almost the only title on the Switch. It's the only Nintendo first-party title on the Switch that was developed for the Switch, and so I think Nintendo needs this. Remember that consoles sell at a loss and stuff like that. So I almost was hesitant to cover this, but it's pretty amazing, the footage, if you're curious about it. I'm not in any way endorsing emulation, certainly not emulation of games that are less than 6 months old. I find that to be just as bad as piracy. However, it is definitely an interesting case, and I wanted to at least touch on it.
Yeah, that's impressive. I mean, it's terrifying, but it's impressive.
I thought it was interesting getting your perspective because, and I hesitate, I don't even want to open up this can of worms, but I suppose like someone who just can't afford a Switch, like this is a way to play the game.
Yeah, but what's your right to play the Switch? What's your right to play this Zelda game?
And I don't even
if you can't afford the Switch, play it on Wii U.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't even know if it gets.
Do you play it on Wii U?
Yeah, it's they released it for Wii U and Switch. It doesn't run as well on Wii U, but it is on there.
Yeah, so I mean, my point being is, I guess like, I get why someone does this, but at the same time, I thought that was just an interesting perspective because I actually thought you were going to take the other side. So
no, Brandon and I talked about this a little bit last night actually, and where I come down is I'm very strongly against exclusive titles. However, I'm not at all. In fact, I support exclusive first-party titles. If your in-house development team wants to work your asses off on a title for the console that you guys created, you should have the right to make it exclusive. The kind of exclusivity that bothers me is when Tomb Raider gets 6 months of only being on the Xbox. Like when Microsoft says or Sony says we'll produce the game, but you can only put it on our console. That is what bothers me. I'm not bothered by an internal development team wanting to have exclusivity for a game they developed with in-house resources.
It's kind of like Gears of War. Like that's a Microsoft developed game.
Exactly.
And I'm fine
or
with
Halo.
that being on the Xbox.
I mean, this is the only other final point, and we don't need to dwell on it, is, and it's too early to say whether or not this will happen. Wii U was kind of a bomb. Like if the Switch really just struggles though, and like doesn't, and really a lot of their success is obviously going to be their in-house products. But I guess in some ways, does this make you feel more comfortable that like more people will play it, or that it'll be preserved, or you know what I mean? Like,
no. If anything, I would be concerned about the longevity of the Switch because this could really hurt the console. Because this is a system seller. I bought the console to play Zelda. I mean, I have a couple of indie games.
Yeah.
I have Binding of Isaac now, and I have, the Shovel Knight indie game as well. But like, I bought the console for Zelda, and I don't think that that's wrong per se, because I know I'll get more value out of down the line. But if too many people play this, illegally, and it doesn't get enough sales, that could affect additional first-party development by Nintendo. They may not want to invest as much into it if people have already found a way to crack the system.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Is I think the Switch is like almost entirely dependent on
the Switch.
Like,
is how good is Smash, month old.
How good is Mario Kart? Like how good is like it really? I think that'll make it break it.
I agree.
My opinion.
I agree, and that's why I think it's so important that people don't emulate games that are less than a year old, guys. You'll ruin emulation for everyone. All right,
emulation is great when you're trying to preserve games. So if you go back like 10, 15, 20 years.
Even if you want to go back, I would say if the game is at least 8 to 10 years old, you're probably in more of a gray area that wouldn't be concerning to me. And anything older than that, I'm really not worried about it. But I mean, when you're pirating games that are still being sold in retail stores, or when you're emulating games still sold in retail stores, that's just piracy.
Right.
Yep.
No, it is. It is.
So that's my thoughts on that, and I want to keep things moving here. So, but we can definitely we'll keep an eye on this. I'm not going to give you guys play-by-plays of the quality of the port, but I'll let you guys know if any other major titles are cracked on it, or are able to be emulated on it, just because it will help us it'll be interesting to observe in tandem with sales figures.
Cool, yeah.
Really quick before we go, we have 2 little bits of Overwatch news this week, and by little I mean pretty big, actually. One is Orisa, the new tank who we've been talking about for the last couple weeks, is finally live. She is not available in competitive play, as we discussed. They are going to delay her a little bit just so people can get their kind of bearings with her before she starts costing or winning matches. However,
get their hooks together.
Yeah, exactly. Right. However, she is available in all the other modes, so there's that. I don't think any of us have had a chance to play her yet, so we'll probably hold off on discussing her toolkit and stuff for now. If you want to just know what her abilities are, you can go back and check out a podcast from I think 2 weeks ago when we discussed it. However, yeah, she is now live if you guys wanted to check her out, and we'll have more to say about that once we have seen her for ourselves next week. And then last but not least, we have a pretty huge change to competitive games in Overwatch, and that is they have done everything they can now to completely remove ties from competitive mode. They've made some additional changes to how games are scored, and going forward, at least in the current system that's being tested on the PTR, you will no longer you no longer have to have a complete score in, say, a payload push. You don't have to necessarily push it all the way to the enemy's base to win a game. Instead, what it is if neither of you has successfully pushed it all the way through, or you both pushed it all the way through successfully, it is then going to take the other rounds that were played, and whatever percentage you captured up to, that gets added onto your score. So say you got 77% of the way towards your second capture, and your opponent got 50% of the way towards their second capture, you would win. It doesn't go into overtime, no fancy stuff. It would just victory you. That is interesting. The downside to that is if you have a match where neither of you score, or even for that matter, if you have a round where the first team cannot move the payload at all, you can then win the match by coming in and moving it at all.
You know what?
You can run up to the payload and it'll victory.
Yeah, no, and I to be fair, I get pissed when there's draws, just because you've spent so much time. You're like, well, I don't know what happened. But I think they're moving in the right direction. I think they have to get to a threshold. I think that they need to mark it off.
And remember, this is competitive only.
Right. I mean, I just think I'm not opposed to the basic idea of this. I just think that it has to be a threshold. I think even if you don't move a payload, the other team should have to move it 10% of the map, or you know what I mean? I think that's the direction they need to go in.
Yeah, I sort of see what you're saying. Although that would give them a handicap, which would be kind of unbalanced. But I hear where you're coming from, just for the level of satisfaction. Because I saw a video online of a who is I'm blanking now. Sombra, yes, Sombra. You know exactly what I'm talking about. A video of a Sombra who goes invisible right at the beginning of the second round, sprint in, I think, King's Crossing, sprints directly to the payload, and as she, touches on the payload pad, it's victory, before most people have even made it to see the enemy. So
and I think the reason why is that previous match, they weren't able to move it at all, and they had...
that's exactly it. That only happens if the previous round it was never moved. But it's relevant. It is a thing that does happen.
If you get steamrolled the first match, you get steamrolled every other match.
Yeah, exactly. I just could see it being unsatisfying even for the winning team in that situation. But I guess competitive matches aren't necessarily about having satisfying matches. They're about having definitive matches. You want to know who won. Having draws in competitive play is no good for anybody.
Yeah.
It's an interesting situation. But, sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
I'm interested to see how this plans out in the future. I'm sure there's going to be more subtle tweaks as time progresses.
Yeah, this is only on the PTR right now, so it's not even live yet. So they'll probably even tweak it before it goes live, I'd guess.
Yeah, I'm intrigued as to see what they intend to do, because it sounds like a really easy problem. Just eliminate ties, but it's actually pretty complex, and it has to be done in a fashion that's both definitive yet fair and balanced, which is kind of difficult when you're talking about the current systems that they have in place right now. So
Right.
I'm intrigued to see what they do. I won't say it's a step in a. I won't say it's a back step or a forward step. I'll just say it's a step to hopefully rectifying this issue.
Yeah, definitely. So. And I for one will be happy to see less ties, and I hope that they roll out a simpler version of this system for skirmish play, because personally I don't like games that end in a draw either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
Anyways, though, as I'm sure you all can tell, this show has been procedurally generated. We hope you guys have enjoyed listening. You can check us out on Libsyn and iTunes, where you can leave a rating or review, or you can also follow us on our Twitter at PG_show. If you prefer to watch the show on YouTube, you can also check out my channel, which also features additional videos, usually Hearthstone-oriented, but sometimes with the flavor of the month that I'm playing, which is lesser.noob. That's N00B. On YouTube, or just search Henry Plays on Google. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening, and as always, game on.